Our 2024-25 season previews will continue on today with the Vancouver Canucks. We're going to wrap all these up today, get all four of them out within the span of the next hour. So that's Vancouver, Vegas, Washington, Winnipeg, for those who have been watching. Regardless, you're for Vancouver. The Canucks last year had a really good year. I mean, that's really all you can say. The last couple of years, before that, even the last 10 years, I can't lie, were all a big struggle, and people were very frustrated with how this team was being run, but they finally broke through. They finished first in the Pacific this past year. But first off, I want to go back to 2 years before that, where everything kind of started, and, the Canucks kind of started taking a better path, I guess, however you want to call it. So in 21-22, they went 40-30-12 for 92 points. They were 18th in the NHL. They missed the playoffs, but in that season, they fired Travis Green. They fired Jim Benning, two people who were called out to be fired in years prior. They bring in Patrick Alvin. They bring in Bruce Boudreau at the time, and he commandeers that team to a pretty good record, and they come close to the playoffs. They did. They came pretty close to the playoffs, but obviously they ended up not making it. But it was a good year. It was looked at as, oh yeah, Vancouver's going to make it the following year, and then it didn't go that way. In 2022-23, the team went 38-37-7 for 83 points. They were 22nd in the NHL. I thought that they had their record at the end of the year looked really good because they had a really good turnaround in the second half of the season. But the first half was a brutal start. The way they handled Bruce Boudreau was not professional whatsoever, and that is still something that I'm a little bit upset about to this day. But overall, I do like them bringing in Rick Tocchet, and obviously it worked out this past year, where in 2023-24, they went 50-23-9 for 109 points. They were 6th in the NHL. They had I think that's a 26-point increase from the previous year, so they looked really impressive. They go into the playoffs. They beat Nashville. Then they lose to Edmonton in 7 games. But there's a lot of people who do believe that if Vancouver had Demko, if Vancouver had Besser, they would have beaten the Oilers and they would have gone even further in the playoffs. But overall, it was a really good step for Vancouver. I thought there wasn't much to be mad at. I thought that they are heading in the right direction for sure, and I like a lot of the moves they made this past offseason. But starting off with your departures, you lose Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, Ilya Mikheyev, Casey DeSmith, Sam Lafferty, and Ian Cole. You also lose Tucker Poolman, too, who's not even listed on my depth chart at all, which isn't that big of a deal. But regardless, Lindholm and Zadorov are the biggest losses. You lose a good, I would say, probably second line, maybe even third line center on this team, honestly. He was a trade deadline acquisition, so it's not a huge loss, I guess you can kind of technify it as, but trade deadline guys, I don't like to say that they're big losses, because they might be, but honestly, they weren't there for 3/4 of the season anyway, so that's kind of how I look at them. Zadorov was a little bit different. He was acquired earlier on in the year. They might miss him on that blue line for sure, because I thought he looked pretty good with Vancouver, especially in the playoffs too. Mikheyev was on not such a good contract. He got traded. DeSmith, gonna miss him. He's obviously a good backup goaltender. And then Lafferty and Cole were two depth players who did go to other places, who probably maybe missed on Vancouver's depth chart. But the guys they brought in, I liked a lot. They brought in Jake DeBrusk, Daniel Sprong, Danton Heinen, Kiefer Sherwood, Derek Forbert, Vincent Desharnais, and Kevin Lankinen. So I like some of those adds. I like DeBrusk, going to fit in well. It's probably your first or second line left wing. Sprong, good depth player. He was good last year for Detroit. You also get guys like Danton Heinen and Kiefer Sherwood who are going to fit well into this team's depth chart. They might not be opening night roster guys, but I think they could fit in well in the depth chart and give them some depth. Same with Derek Forbert, might make that third pairing, and Desharnais as well. And you got Kevin Lankinen as your goaltender. We'll get more into that later on in this preview, but good acquisition there. Let's get into the projected lineup now. This is per the Hockey News, not per me, so do not come at me. Start with your top 6. Jake DeBrusk, JT Miller, and Brock Besser. Second line, Nils Höglander, Elias Pettersson, and Connor Garland. Good top 6. I like that. You got Miller, Pettersson, good 1-2 punch there. Besser obviously scored a lot of goals last year. Hopefully he can do that. With DeBrusk playing on that line, I think that he's going to have a really good season playing alongside Miller and Besser. If that does end up happening, maybe the lines get changed up a little bit, obviously. But I think that those guys meshed together could really go a long way for this Canucks team, and hopefully it does go that way, because I would like to see that for sure. You look at your bottom six then, you have Dakota Joshua, going to put an asterisk there, Pia Suter and Daniel Sprong is your third line. Then you have Danton Heinen, Teddy Bluger, and Philip DiGiuseppe as your fourth line. Then you have Kiefer Sherwood, Nils Amont, and Linus Karlsson as your extra players. I want to put an asterisk next to Joshua because he is fighting cancer right now, which is unfortunate to see, but hopefully he will be okay. He's going to miss the first half of the season most likely. Maybe not the entire first half, but the beginning of the season is a better term for it. I like the bottom six. I don't know if I like it more than I did last year, but Suter, good third line center. Sprong's a really good pickup too for cheap money. That fourth line's going to be solid. Teddy Bluger, great fourth line center. I like that. They have solid depth. I don't know if I like it as much as last year's, but I think they still have some really solid depth that will get them a long way for sure. When you look at their blue line, you got Quinn Hughes and Filip Hronek as your first pairing. Then you have Carson Soucy and Tyler Myers, almost said Philip Myers, as your second pairing. Then you have Derek Forbort and Vincent Desharnais as your third pairing. Then you have Noah Juulsen as your extra defenseman. So I like those guys a lot. I like Hughes and Hronek. Great first pairing. After that, I'm a little questionable, especially with that third pairing of Forbort and Desharnais, mainly because those are two new guys. Forbort, not well known for his defensive play in Boston, and Desharnais is a big hitter. So we're going to see what happens there with that third pairing for sure. But I like it. I like the blue line. I think it's pretty good. I don't know if it's great outside of the first pairing, but I think it's pretty good. I like Soucy and Myers. Myers had a good year last year as well. So not a bad blue line. You look at your goaltending. I do have Demko and Shelovs listed. However, it might be Lankinen and Shelovs, or it might be Lankinen and somebody else because of Demko. Now, with Demko, you kind of got to be a little bit careful because you don't want to rush him back into playing because obviously that might not end well with Vancouver, honestly, and I think that you could stall his development and maybe he might not be able to play again. So hopefully they will be able to do that right, but they are planning on starting the year without him, and I think Lankinen's going to be your starting goaltender. I heard Shelovs is dealing with something. I'm not 100% sure there, but again, it does kind of show that they're in an interesting spot there, and there are some people who do doubt them a little bit and may not think they're going to be able to get into the first place spot in that Pacific again because of the goaltending. So we'll really see what happens there, but I think the rest of this team is solid enough where they may not have to worry about that. And I think that Alvin can manage the cap well and get out and go and trade for a candidate to be your goaltender, maybe for a longer-term solution if they did have to. And then obviously Rick Tocchet, too. He's a terrific coach. I really shouldn't have to say much else about it. He is a great coach, and I think that he can definitely get Vancouver through these struggles for sure. So let's take a look at the Hockey News' yearbook. I was trying to open it there. That's why I was looking down a little bit. But they have the Canucks third in the Pacific. Their biggest X factor is Vancouver had the ninth best road record last season with 6 game stretches away from home in November and March. The team's ability to continue that success could decide their fate in the Pacific Division. And again, I think another X factor too is probably that goaltending if Demko isn't back. Obviously, they're going to have to wonder what Lankinen and Shelovs are going to do. But again, as I said, I think they'll be fine. I think they're going to be able to do it this year. I think they're a very good team. I think that they will finish at least in the top 3, probably top 2 as well in that Pacific Division. I think it's going to be another exciting year for the Vancouver Canucks. And hopefully they don't do what Jersey did last year when Vancouver kind of surprised and made it in last year. Hopefully they don't do the opposite and miss the playoffs. That would be rough, for sure. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on the Vancouver Canucks. They are one interesting team in the NHL this year. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe down below. I really appreciate it. And again, I will see you guys in the next video. Adios.